Hey, it's your guy Tyrrell back with the interviews. Arsenal, Liverpool, Emirates Stadium. Liverpool remain unbeaten. Arsenal's unbeaten streak also continues. How did that happen? Where did both sides go right? Where did they go wrong? Don't worry, here with the interviews, we've got you covered. So on this edition of the interviews, we're going to break down Arsenal against Liverpool. So before we get into today's video, don't forget to give our video a thumbs up if you do enjoy it. The bell below does give you daily notifications regarding our organic, unfiltered soccer/footy analysis. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel. In today's video, we're going to break down the first half, see how both sides look to approach the game, where Arsenal found their strengths, where Liverpool found their strengths. Then get to the second half, see how Liverpool changed things tactically and how Arsenal were able to fight back into the game. But first, let's get to the starting lineups. We look at Arsenal, more of a 4-2-3-1. Lacazette ahead of Ozil, out in wider areas, Aubameyang and Mkhitaryan, and in midfield, Lucas Torreira and Xhaka. Then we get to Liverpool, 4-3-3, no real surprises here. Mane, Firmino, Salah up front, in midfield with Milner, Wijnaldum, and Fabinho. Big game, both sides looking to play from the front and go forward. So let's get to how they approach the game and see how Emery and Klopp look to win it. So 4-2-3-1 against 4-3-3, what you often see here is you still have that midfield battle. You have the Arsenal number 10, you have Fabinho, you have the midfield shuttlers. And then when you think about it as a whole, if the wider players on Liverpool need to drop off, they can to ensure that the Arsenal fullbacks don't get forward. But that was the big question. How are Liverpool going to press? How are they going to approach the game? Because as we've seen this season, they have their wider players sit out and block off the passes into the fullbacks. They don't want them to play forward. But if they do that, then that still allows the central midfielders to get an advantage unless they really pull out as a whole and press from the front. And we haven't seen them do that this season. And like I said, with the pace of Aubameyang breaking in behind, with Ozil able to dart in behind, even with Lacazette's all-around play, they weren't looking to do that away from home. What they often did do is that they did look to press from the front with the three. So when the center backs pushed out, they would have the wider players step out there. When the ball went into Leno, you would have Firmino sit. Now you have Arsenal who could drop Xhaka and Torreira into that space. If they do that, Firmino often ended up taking Torreira to ensure that Milner didn't have to come forward. With that being said, that left Xhaka free. Sometimes we saw Wijnaldum push forward. Sometimes we even saw Fabinho push forward on one occasion. They needed to get players out into those zones because when they did drop off into that 4-5-1 for the most part, there were different variations of how they went about it. There were times when the ball would be shifted out to Bellerin. You'd see Mane step to him. Sometimes you'd see Milner step out to him. And depending on the play, sometimes you'd get Robertson push out. But it was just about how they were going to go about it because we've seen Arsenal, when they get the fullbacks forward, they offer such of an attacking threat. But on the flip side, that does create space for Firmino, Mane, and Salah to break into, and that was pivotal. So it was interesting to see how Liverpool went about the game and how they were going to approach it. Whereas for Arsenal, they pressed from the front. There were no hold bars. They pushed forward with the more so in a front four, basically, because Ozil stepped to Gomez, you had Lacazette pushing to Van Dijk, the wider players stepping out. When you had the wide players of Liverpool step onto those positions, Kolasinac and Bellerin pushed out to them, and then you had the shuttlers step into their position there. So there was always Arsenal were looking to squeeze. They were looking to force Liverpool into some errors. They didn't want them to play out of the back. So we have to look and see how Liverpool looked to overcome that and where they found space in the first half. So let's get to that. So due to Arsenal's pressing, Liverpool had to find another way to get an advantage and push forward. That was through Mo Salah, based on the fact that they played direct and they looked to exploit the left-hand side of Arsenal in Kolasinac and Holding. If you think about their earlier chances, what stems is that Alisson is able to clip the ball over the box. He punts it into that space between them. You have Salah who's able to drift out. Kolasinac tracks him, and then he looks to play it into Mane who's coming across, but Xhaka does well to clear his lines after the pullback. So that was big on one point. You see Salah there. Another opportunity that we see through Mo Salah was James Milner dropping off a bit deeper. And what happens here is that he drops off deeper to get away from the press, and Mkhitaryan doesn't want to close him. And what happens is that he slices a ball into that space again. And you see Salah trying to break in between those two, but the ball is a bit heavy. But again, it just shows Liverpool's intent on trying to get Salah in between those spaces, trying to get him to break in free and get into 1v1 situations with those two center backs. When you step to another opportunity, this time it's just a poor Torreira pass. Wijnaldum's able to intercept it. He instantly slides the ball into Salah in that space. Kolasinac is a bit higher as Arsenal tried to get their fullbacks forward. Now he's in a 1v1 with Holding. He ends up pulling it back again into that space, but who comes across? It's Xhaka to ensure that Wijnaldum doesn't get a free shot on goal at the edge of the box. One more opportunity. We see Aubameyang there, and he's dispossessed by Wijnaldum in around the box. He's able to win it. Then he sees space between Xhaka, between Kolasinac to play a pass into Salah, who is close by Holding, but then he's able to spin by him, drive forward, but Xhaka comes across again. Xhaka played a very key role in stopping Salah from breaking in behind, but Salah had a lot of those opportunities. When they closed well, it's pretty simple. Aubameyang will push forward to Arnold. You'll have Kolasinac step forward and hold off Salah, but Salah would often drift out into that space in behind. Even when they played long balls in that sense over to try and get it to him, Kolasinac was unable to deal with it, and Salah was able to spin. When they dropped off and didn't do a good job, and Aubameyang didn't press Arnold, and then one time we had Wijnaldum shift over, so Kolasinac had to pull in. What happens again? They're able to just lob that ball over. Salah's able to break free. But that was one way, and the main route that Liverpool looked to create chances was through Mo Salah, getting 1v1 against those two players. And then when we get to the other opportunities, what we do see here is Liverpool just creating good chances and Arsenal kind of switching off. We look at one where Ozil looks to step forward and press Gomez, and he's able to switch the ball out to Arnold. And what happens here is Arnold's able to get the ball and cut in back on both Aubameyang and Kolasinac. What we have here now is Holding sitting onto Salah. We have Mane looking to break in between Mustafi and Bellerin. And what happens here is that Firmino runs off behind Torreira and breaks into that space. The ball is played in. Although Mane is offside, Firmino is able to bring it down. He guides the shot off the post. Mane is able to tap it in. There's some controversy after that, but here at the InnerViews, we don't get into that. You be the judge whether it was offside or not, but that was a great opportunity. We look at another one where, again, it's just a quick throw in, and what happens here is that Van Dijk is in the play, and he gets in between Bellerin and Mustafi to chest the ball down, fire a shot on goal that he probably should have scored, but Leno kept it out. And then you have the deep Milner free kick where he gets between both center backs. Leno's off his line. Van Dijk is able to win the header because Leno's out of land, and what happens there, he nods that ball off the post and out. But we break it down, you see Salah getting the individual battles down the left hand side, looking to run at Kolasinac and Holding, and you get the fact that Arsenal switched off on a few occasions. Liverpool had their chances, but now let's get to Arsenal and see what they did right in the first half. A lot of Arsenal's best moves stem down the left-hand side. You think about it, first we'll get to how the left backs were involved. We think about Kolasinac, he was able to push forward. They had some combinations there with Ozil. Two really come to mind in the first half. We saw more in the second half. What happens is that Kolasinac is able to push forward. The ball is switched out to him. He plays the ball to Aubameyang, and what happens now is that he's able to run in behind. Salah doesn't track him. Wijnaldum doesn't come over to track him. The ball is then poked by Aubameyang into the path of Lacazette. What we see here is now into the path of Kolasinac. What we end up seeing here is that the cross is played in because Gomez has to come across. Lacazette ends up getting across Robertson, but he doesn't call off Van Dijk. So Van Dijk leaves it, and Lacazette is able to get a little flick on goal that Alisson comes out and he's able to make a quality save. That's a Liverpool breakdown. That's great work from Arsenal down the left-hand side. We see another opportunity again, where this time we see some of the wider players switch over. It was Mane who was over on the right-hand side. Kolasinac is able to play a pass into Play a pass here into the left-hand side. What happens now is that he runs off Mane and he's able to get it back. And now he's faced right in front of Arnold, but Ozil is there. No one's picking up Ozil. Ozil's able to pick up the ball in the half space, play it back to Lacazette. Lacazette cuts in, but his shot is blocked. But again, just simple passing moves, Liverpool breakdowns, no one really switching over. Although Salah was getting forward, they were taking advantage of him not tracking back. Wijnaldum was not pushing back as well. Ozil was finding space. And then when you think about it, Ozil was a key player due to his movement in regards to the first half, and that's because Wijnaldum wasn't tracking him. When we get to the first opportunity, we see good Arsenal pressing. They're closing down their markers, and when we get Mkhitaryan closing down Robertson, his clearance is deflected by Torreira into the path of Milner. Milner now has a poor touch, and Bellerin is able to poke it into the path of Xhaka. Xhaka now is able to play the pass to the left of Wijnaldum, and when he plays to the left of Wijnaldum, Ozil dummies it, and it allows Aubameyang to get it in between Gomez and Arnold. And what happens here is that he ends up firing a shot off the defender for a corner kick as Gomez makes a good block. But again, warning signs. We think to another opportunity here. And what happens that Bellerin is able to push forward with the ball. Milner comes across to kind of close him. Mkhitaryan, he plays a pass into Mkhitaryan, who picks it up ahead of Robertson in a narrow position. What happens there is that he gets pressed by Fabinho, is able to pull out of that, drop it back to Torreira. What happens now is that Torreira finds Ozil again to the right of Wijnaldum. He's able to pick it up. He sees Kolasinac making the overlapping run as he drives forward, plays it into him. His cross into the box is pushed out by Alisson. It falls to Mkhitaryan, but he's unable to get a shot off. But again, warning signs. Ozil is finding that space to the right of Wijnaldum. No one is picking it up. We step to another opportunity. It's Xhaka picking up a loose ball in midfield, this time based off a Torreira blocked pass. What happens here is, again, he's able to find that space and no one is doing anything about it. Ozil gets it there. What happens now is that we see the greatness of Mkhitaryan and Aubameyang, and what they do best is the fact that what happens now is that Ozil's able to play the pass into Mkhitaryan, who's cutting across the two center backs, and he backheels it behind Van Dijk for Aubameyang, but he's unable to score. But again, it forces a great save out of Alisson. It's able to show the combination plays that they're having down those flanks and how Ozil's able to find space in the midfield. And then we look to the final opportunity, and it stems from just a simple throw-in, and Bellerin and Firmino attack it. It ends up falling to Xhaka, and where does Xhaka look to go? He looks to play it into Ozil over Wijnaldum, clips it over Wijnaldum. Lacazette is able to spin in between Robertson and Van Dijk, and Ozil backheeled it into that path. He should score, but he flashes his effort wide. We break down the first half, we look at Arsenal, we see that they're finding space through Ozil, they're working down the left-hand side. Now they're having Xhaka and Torreira combine and create chances from deep. Although it took a bit for them to get going, they were able to create some quality chances. So now let's get to Liverpool and see what they did in the second half and how they were looking to negate that threat and go ahead. The second half in itself saw Liverpool move to more of a 4-2-3-1, 4-4-1-1. What happened there is that you have Firmino playing in the number 10 role, just in behind Mo Salah, who moved up front, which means Mane and Milner took up wider positions. What happened here was that the intent of that was to shut down Xhaka and Torreira from getting the ball in deeper positions. You would have Firmino follow one, you'd have Salah stick to the other, and what would also happen here is that Milner would keep a much more of a narrow role. If they played out the ball to Kolasinac, he would shoot out into that space and close him down. But besides that, he was there just in case they moved out a bit wider, and he was able to step into that space to ensure that they weren't picking up the ball in those deeper positions to start the second half. And that was how Liverpool were going about it. They were fine about matching up in midfield. They wanted to block off those spaces. But with Salah as a direct threat, they wanted to ensure that Arsenal didn't feel free to push their fullbacks forward. And at the same time, they want to stop Xhaka and Torreira, who played a key role in some of the chances in the first half to getting on the ball, and that was pivotal for them. If Salah ended up pressing forward and trying to close down the center backs, they'd have Fabinho step forward, they'd have Milner step to the free midfielder, but for the most part, you saw them like that in higher positions, looking to close, squeezing those central areas, and they weren't worried about the ball going out wide because they had just shift out Mane there, they'd shift out Milner, but they wanted to win the ball in those central areas, as Arsenal weren't really scared to play the ball into the midfielders. When you think about the chances that they created, their goal kind of came against the run of play. You think about their opener, Van Dijk switches the ball out to Robertson. What happens here is that you have Mane in a deeper position now. Mane is to the right of Torreira. What happens here is that once Robertson gets the ball, he instantly darts into the space in behind Bellerin. Robertson's able to play the ball around Mkhitaryan, around Bellerin, into Mane, who has the pace to pick it up. This forces Mustafi out now. What happens here is that the cross into the box is played in, but Leno ends up pushing it out into the midfield, and James Milner at the edge of the box is able to fire a superb effort past the keeper. Liverpool are up 1-0. Just a quick defensive lapse, mental lapse from Arsenal. They're ahead. We think to another opportunity here, and this was vintage Liverpool, and you have to think that they probably should have put the game away here, and they'll be kicking themselves. It's Van Dijk winning the ball off Lacazette. What happens now is that the ball is poked behind Xhaka into the path of Firmino. What happens now is the Arsenal center backs are extremely high, and what happens, Firmino plays the ball between them both, and what happens there is that as Mane is looking to run off Bellerin, he plays the ball into that space. Salah breaks in. Mane continues his run, and Bellerin's really fast. So as they're both running, what happens there is that Mustafi has to come out, and he has to try and close down Salah, but he doesn't step in to try and make a tackle. What happens there is that the cross is played into the box. Leno comes out and misses it. Mane breaks free across a holding and just misses it as well, and it evades him, and that was a golden opportunity to put Liverpool up 2-0. They had a chance from the corner kick. Firmino rising over Bellerin, nods it wide. Van Dijk, free header in the box, nods it on goal, and Leno pushes it over the net. But those were Liverpool's chances in a nutshell. The tactical change, they wanted to stop the midfielders from playing the ball at the back. Did that work? It did allow Arsenal some chances, so let's get to that and see how Arsenal were able to play forward in the second half and able to equalize late on. With Liverpool changing their system and looking to occupy Arsenal's central midfielders, that meant that Arsenal had 2v1 to play out the back. Mustafi was a key figure to start the second half, and initially what we saw was Arsenal breaking up play in midfield. We saw Xhaka stepping to Wijnaldum, dispossessing him, and then eventually winning a foul. We saw Robertson eventually beat Mkhitaryan, but that Mkhitaryan fight hard, although it could have been a foul, to poke the ball away and then allow Arsenal to break in transition. So they were still sticking to their guns in terms of pressing, but now with Mustafi pushing forward, they had more of a direct threat. We saw in the earlier stages, Mane tried to step to him, and he bypassed him with a pass to Bellerin. What we see here is Lacazette pull Van Dijk out, and we see Mkhitaryan make the inside run on Robertson. The pass is played in between, and we see Van Dijk recover well as he saw that Mkhitaryan was making that run in between. He comes across there, Mkhitaryan's held up, and then Gomez is able to come across to win back the ball. But again, we see one element of how they were trying to do it. For the most part, we saw Mustafi trying to break forward and Salah at the last minute starting to press him as he got towards half. The second play, although the ball was overhit, we again see Lacazette holding off Van Dijk. And what we see here is Ozil making the run in behind Fabinho because now there's no one really marking him. And he's able to make that run in behind. You see Aubameyang run in between Gomez and Arnold, but the ball was overhit. But it shows Arsenal's intentions, trying to break in behind, trying to create those chances, trying to run in. They did fall behind, and what we ended up seeing was, again, they kind of stuck to their laurels as Liverpool dropped off a bit deeper into that 4-1, into that 4-4-1-1. What we ended up seeing, another great opportunity, is that Torreira able to bypass Fabinho. What happens here is he bypasses him with Mkhitaryan making that narrow position. He plays it into him, gets it back, and he's able to run free on goal based on the fact that the two Arsenal forwards in Aubameyang and Lacazette in between Arnold and Gomez. You have Aubameyang looking to run in behind Van Dijk. Torreira is able to push forward because they're occupying those spaces, and he fires a shot on goal. Should have been better, but is pushed over the net. Then Emery makes changes. He brings on Iwobi. He brings on Ramsey. Ozil ends up moving out to the right, Ramsey through the middle, Iwobi out to the left. That were their direct changes. We didn't really see much in terms of a systematic change. There was no real impact, but we did see our Liverpool drop off, like I said, and Xhaka was able to play some diagonal balls out into the left-hand side. The first one, we see Iwobi pull out Arnold, and that allows Kolasinac to break forward, and then he drops back off to get the pass, and he's able to run past Arnold, Robertson. He's able to run past Arnold, Wijnaldum, and Milner and break towards the box, but his cross for Ozil breaking in was overhit. We saw a similar play for Kolasinac, who was able to run past Milner and get the diagonal, but his cross was unable to get into the box and he won a corner kick. Then we get to the goal, because what happens after that is we see Welbeck come onto the field. We see Iwobi move to left back, and what happens here is now you have more of an attacking threat. It looked like they were attacking playing with two center backs, and what we end up seeing here is for the build up to the goal, we see Ozil cut in from the right, play to Torreira, who's able to shift off Shaqiri, who came on as a substitute. And what he's able to do now is play the ball to Iwobi. What happens here is that you have Welbeck and you have Lacazette in between the center backs. So that's pivotal. So they're both occupying the center backs. What happens is that Ramsey shifts out to the right to pull out Arnold and break that line there. So now there's gaps in that space. What happens is that Milner doesn't get close to Iwobi, and Iwobi is able to play that pass into that space, and Lacazette runs off Van Dijk, and although Alisson comes out, he's able to hold them off and he's able to finish superbly. But in terms of the grand scheme of things, Liverpool changed their system in the second half. They were able to get a grip of the midfield and stop that. They scored the goal on the counter, should have ended up killing off the game. Arsenal had to move more direct. They brought in the substitutions, but again, it all stemmed down the left-hand side, and although the substitutions didn't impact the game systematically or have a greater influence, all substitutes were involved in the goal, and that goes to show that Emery did make the right decisions to bring them onto the game, and Arsenal get a valuable point. They remain on this unbeaten run, whereas Liverpool remain unbeaten but drop off, and it allows Chelsea and Manchester City to now possibly gain ground and step ahead of them in the Premier League table. But let me know what you guys think. How good can Arsenal be? Can they finish higher than Liverpool this season? Can they challenge? Will they finish in the top four? And what about Liverpool? Not playing well, but finding ways to get results. So they deserve more here. Meet me in the comments below. Don't forget I upload videos every day, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. And if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. And that was your daily dose of the interviews.